And so that leaves you asking yourself, do you worry? Are you concerned that maybe when you leave this earth, there will be people who will show up? There'll be people who will come up and say, please don't bury them. Please don't take them to the grave before ABCD is resolved. Hello there. This is Dr. Susan Gitao. It's been a while, but it has been a journey also for me and for many other people. Some are close to me, and some are like you who is watching me. Today, I want to talk about complicated grief. Many a times when we lose a loved one, there are common signs and symptoms that people experience. There is almost a pathway that all of us follow. And I'm sure majority of you are aware of the grieving process, and especially for therapists and social workers that deal with grief and life coaches. You're aware people move from denial to numbing, shock, anger at the doctors, anger at themselves, relatives, family, friends, system, name it. And sometimes they go into a bargaining mode and they wish maybe they could have done things better. Maybe they could have made a situation better than it was. Maybe they could have saved the loved one. Maybe they could have prayed more. Maybe they could have been better spouses. Maybe they could have been better children. There are many things at the bargaining stage that people wrestle with. And when it's not easy to close the bargaining stage, very many people progress very fast into the depressive or depression stage, where people get all the signs and symptoms of depression marked by a lot of negativity, negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative perceptions. Everything doesn't fall in place. And if they're able to negotiate the depression stage, they are able to move to acceptance stage. And once they accept, they start making plans for adjustment and moving forward. And so I would say that people differ, systems differ, families differ. And particularly because I want to talk about you and I, we're very unique in terms of personality, in terms of temperaments, in terms of maybe experiences. Some people who have had prior grief experiences or bereavement, sometimes it becomes easier to get over the subsequent grief and bereavement experiences. And some it could be worse if there was no closure. But there are situations that I want to talk about today, complicating the grieving process. We call sometimes other stressors that accompany the grieving process. And sometimes it could be issues to do with medical bills. Somebody has died and there's a huge medical bill that needs to be settled. And you cannot take the body, you cannot bury that person until that medical bill has been settled. That can be a stressor and a big one for that matter. And that is why you find very many people when they come to visit you, when you're in the bereavement phase, when you're bereaved, they will keep asking, do you have any concerns about the hospital bill? Because they know that can be a very big burden. There are many other factors that happen, especially in the African continent, where we believe we have to bury our loved ones in the ancestral land. And sometimes maybe there are conflicts over that land. And you're held in some limbo. you don't know where to take your loved one, you know? And sometimes maybe there is a court injunction, or there's a case in court. And people are just held there in limbo. And sometimes if you had a medical bill and the body is still being held in the morgue and bills are accumulating day and night, and maybe there are court cases, and maybe you've hired a lawyer, it can be very, very distressing. It can be very, very stressful. There are times you may find that in Africa, this is very common in Africa, unlike in the West, that somebody dies, and once they are dead, it's when other family members show up. You find children claiming this was their father, or a husband claiming, or a man claiming this was my wife, and it can be a complicating issue. And that can be an added stressor. Maybe even if you had anger issues related to the loss, you may now have a lot of anger that is directed to the one that is already dead. And so you may find people that are full of anger, you may find people that are full of bitterness, and especially when they discover for the first time that this person was basically cheating on you and you never got to know about it. And so that can complicate the grieving process. Sometimes you may realize that somebody shows up and says that the late owes them money, and they come with evidence how the late owes them money, or the late used family property to secure a financial asset, and the family did not know. And there are people there. And in Africa, we are very good at asking, who is old by the late? We need to know. And they will still ask us, especially during the last burial rite, is there anyone here who can claim that the late so and so owes them money? If you don't say it now, then please never say it. And you can imagine if somebody that shows up and says this is what they owe us. Sometimes it's even the financial institutions that show up and say this person had given the title deed for the land as security, and this is where you're even going to bury them. Complicated issues. And sometimes there could be other conflicts that are brought up at that time. And so that leaves you asking yourself, do you worry? Are you concerned that maybe when you leave this earth, there will be people who will show up? There'll be people who will come up and say, please don't bury them. Please don't take them to the grave before ABCD is resolved. And that's leave me with a big question to all of us. How authentic is your life? If you died today, would people come up with stories that are true about you? Because I would rather they are talking about false stories about you, but it's not the truth, because this really disturbs families. And I have seen it's a high time that people talked about some of these issues openly, because they can really affect people forever. And you're not there for them to question you. You're not there to answer some of these questions. Well, I know there are people who really try indirectly to say one or two things about some secrets that they hold. And there are others again who want to live light. They want to go to the next world light. Recently, I lost my uncle, my dear uncle, that I have taken care of since 2009. And he was a great comedian for the family. He was fun to be with until last year. He fractured his hip bone, went into surgery, came out successfully, but never ever walked on his 2 feet, but on support of a tripod. And the last days, so he kept saying, I would like to die somewhere safe in hospital. And we thought it was just the same joke that he was. But honestly, he only stayed in hospital for one day, and the following day he lost his life battle. But before he did that, he kept saying, in my mother tongue, I don't have any grudge against anyone. I am okay. I am at peace. And he said that 3 times. He really wanted to go to the next phase of his life. Light. Light. And I want to tell you, because even though there were a few challenges here and there, because of the African way of life and connections, extended family members and relatives, he basically, I could see that peace accompanying him It accompanied everything about him. I have nothing against anyone. I have nothing against anyone. I am at peace with everyone. Unless they have an issue with me, I don't have an issue with them. I think that was a very big learning lesson for me. That sometimes there are people who could have an issue with you, but so long as you don't have an issue with them, kindly be at peace. Kindly be at peace. And that is what I sum up as authentic living, that you are the person in the inside and the outside. You are just one and the same person. And I guess that's the best freedom that any human being can ever have, that I am me, in and out. I am me. And sometimes I like to say, like when you're flying, you're advised to travel light. So I'm also thinking, when we think we can die anytime, right? It's good to just live this life authentically. It's good to be light on your way to the next phase after this life. There are also other things that can complicate the grieving process, especially whereby maybe if it's a spouse, they had separated, it wasn't legally sealed, there was no divorce, in court, no official divorce was processed. And so when this person dies, they would like to come for you, the spouse. They want you to be there. And sometimes I have heard people saying, I do not know how to behave at that time. It's been many years apart. I don't know now. When I hear they are dead, how do I behave? How do I even process things? And so sometimes that's why I keep saying it's good not to make enemies out of everyone, because you may have divorced your husband, but maybe his relatives, his family, and your children still have some networks somewhere. You don't want to make it hard for anyone. And I long for that day where people will separate, go separate ways, but they can still be loving, they can still be respectful, they can still be caring, because you never lose anything by being kind to people. You don't. You don't lose a thing by being kind to other people. But what I have found in my work and experience, especially with people who are psychologically distressed because of loss and grief issues, is that they get stuck even at anger, and they keep oscillating between depression and anger stage, and at some little bargaining for that matter. And if they are bargaining, it's with a lot of regrets in there, that I shouldn't have done this, I should have allowed this, and all that. And so I would encourage that in this life, to reduce the chances of complicating our grief, let us learn to forgive. Forgive and let go. Don't hold any grudges against people. It's actually so heavy. I want to imagine, especially people who are between 35, 45, 50 going forward. You have lots of responsibilities. You have a lot of work to do. You have maybe children, you have work, you have the society. Those who are in leadership position, you are there. You can imagine trying to carry and hold grudges against other people. You are complicating your life, and you only have one head, you have one mind, and one body, and probably one heart. Why do you want to overburden yourself by carrying people on your shoulders, carrying people in your heart, carrying people in your mind? And so I would encourage, I know this is wishful thinking, but that's the way I like to do life, that I don't complicate anything. And I relate this with a lot of my life experiences. I relate this probably when I thought I was doing well by keeping grudges, by holding. It's like you're holding somebody hostage. It's not them. Some of them, they don't have feelings. Some of them, they don't have a conscience. So they will hurt you, they will harm you, and they will never remember. And you are carrying them. So you're making work, life, social, everything difficult for yourself. And so when you forgive and let go, you are basically saying, I want to be free. There are times people can even carry away what is very precious to you. They take it away. They can take it by force. They can manipulate you to giving it to them. They can do anything, anything. Big question. How long do you want to carry them? It's too heavy to carry them. Sometimes you can't carry yourself. How then will you carry them? And the more you give in space for people who hurt you to be there in your life, it's like they occupy your everyday life. You will never have time to occupy yourself for your life giving dreams. You will never have that focus to pull on your purpose. If you're working, you will never be productive. So, whatever you do, ask yourself at the end of the day, how does holding a grudge against certain people help me? How does it help you? And I bet you will find that you don't get any help. Probably you're just raising your adrenaline and cortisol levels in your body. And you might, in the long run, bring to yourself very complicated health issues, all the way from your mental wellness to your physical wellness. And you might end up spending more than you would if you just forgive and let go. Let people call you a fool. Let people think you're not smart. But what you are enjoying in return is freedom. Is freedom. Freedom. And freedom sometimes it's not about justice, because if we talk about justice, it's like maybe they come and apologize to you, or maybe they return what they have stolen from you. But that might not happen. That's just how the world is. And so when you forgive and let go, you have freedom, maybe to make more money if it's money they took from you, create more relationships, better, healthier relationships, and move on without a baggage. You move on without a baggage. And probably what I would also say complicates the grieving process is our way of thinking. And our way of thinking is shaped by our experiences, is shaped by our ethnic backgrounds, our cultural, social beliefs, or traditional practices. And so, as an individual, you need to ask yourself, from my clan, from my culture, from my experiences, what do I carry into the current space and harmonize to integrate the whole of me? Because whatever brings you disharmony is what does not match maybe your desires, your thoughts, your aspirations. And so you keep interrogating, does this cultural belief, does this cultural practice help me? You keep asking yourself, does it really harmonize the whole of me? If not, just know you can always make a choice. You can always make a choice to quit and move on. I want to talk about intercultural competence here. Some people are brought up in a certain cultural environment, but they have never really like gotten swallowed by that culture. But somehow they are able to remain differentiated and in harmony with those people who respect and probably practice certain cultural beliefs and rituals. So long as you keep your space safe, you keep your space secure. And when I say so, I am talking about intercultural competencies. Sometimes I have seen people make hell out of maybe situations that they were not meant to. Yeah, I have seen, for example, people refuse to probably enter a church because they don't ascribe to the beliefs and traditions of that church. Some will not go near a funeral belonging to a certain ethnic group. Hmm, I thank God that when I talk about intercultural competence, I am actually not thinking Western and African. I'm actually thinking inside of us in Africa. We have a lot of cultural differences within very different ethnic groups. And in each ethnic group, there is what they hold so dear in terms of values, culture, practices, and beliefs. So, and I say you cannot please everybody, and you cannot be everywhere, and you cannot practice every cultural belief and tradition. But you can learn how do you give other people space to be? How do you probably keep yourself in a safe space? Because you don't have to, but you can respect people. Because there are people you can never separate from their cultural beliefs, traditions, and practices. And yet, these people probably there is a way you guys are interacting or you're related, and so you have to be very wise. And that is why sometimes I say wisdom you cannot acquire it in the academic corridors. You can only maybe ask of it and receive it from the higher being. For the Christians, it's about God, it's about Jesus Christ. For other spiritual practitioners, you best know how that is actually received. And so I say you can still be differentiated. You can still be yourself so that you can allow others to be as you allow yourself to be. You don't have to break anybody's heart. You don't have to break anybody's bone. You don't have to make their day dull by criticizing them, by brainwashing them, because there are times people are brainwashed indeed, manipulated into accepting some cultural beliefs and practices. Just be you. And some of the people that I have known are quite authentic is the people who explain themselves like little children. People who can say, I'm sorry, I may not join you in this and this, but I do respect what you feel like doing to get closure for the loss of a loved one. Instead of complicating the grieving process by raising tantrums, by probably talking ill against certain people, by sabotaging maybe the funeral and burial arrangements simply because there is something you don't agree with, you might end up hurting more people that are quite innocent, especially the children and the teenagers who are still learning what happens in certain cultures. I want to talk about moving on. And you know how I love mindfulness and mindful self compassion. With all those factors that I have mentioned that can complicate the grieving process, it's always good to have moments of going inside of yourself. Just go inside, spend a few moments, and allow yourself to listen to your breath of life. Listen to your heartbeat. Listen to what your body is saying. Now, are you anxious? Are you unsettled? What do you think you need right now? Without denying what is going on in your mind, in your body, in your heart, in your feelings or emotions, and being true to yourself. What do you need right now? You may realize maybe what you need right now is to be honest with your feelings, with your thoughts. Is to spend some moments and maybe write a goodbye letter to the loved one. Or maybe you want to talk to a therapist about some things that you consider as unfinished business. Or maybe if it's a couple of weeks that have passed after you bury or you cremate your loved one, you would want to remember some beautiful moments. You may want to create maybe an event in their memory, or you want to do a memoir in their memory, you know. And if you did not feel like you mourned them enough because of those factors that I have called other stressors that complicate the grieving process, maybe you want to backtrack and move step by step and be here in this moment and now to have what you need. Maybe you're saying right now, I need closure. And the next thing you can ask yourself, what do I need to do to get closure? And what can surprise you is that when you spend that quiet, still moment with yourself, all the answers for our life problems lie within us. And that is why for me, I say mindful self-compassion. That reminds us to treat ourselves with compassion, with self-kindness, remembering we are connected in this world as a common human race who suffer in one way or the other, that it is common humanity to suffer. And when we talk about being mindful, is not denying our pain. It's basically saying, here we are with our pain. And there's the beauty that I have found of embracing our own challenges, embracing our own pain, instead of running away, instead of pushing our pain away. We embrace that pain. We befriend our pain and see how magical that when we befriend our pain, especially in the grieving moment, when we are bereaved, how powerful, how resilient we become. Because we don't run away, we stay in there, and naturally, the beauty of not running away from our pain, we get aware of just having it. The feeling I get, the imagination I get is melting away. And inside out comes a lot of peace, a lot of patience, a lot of love, a lot of compassion, not just for you, but for the world. And so I would really, really encourage you to join if you can. We have the 4th cohort sponsored by the Center of Mindful Self-Compassion. We have the 4th cohort training on mindful self-compassion beginning 24th of February 2023. It will be a 2.5 hour training, or 2 hours or so, we agree, every evening East African time, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we will be doing this training with Miriam Alute from Germany, but most of the time oscillating between Germany and United States of America. And it's a practice that I will sell to anyone. It cuts across cultures, it cuts across religions, It cuts across ages, and it's a practice that I will say is a new force of uniting the world, because it really catches all of us, first and foremost, as human beings that found ourselves in this planet Earth, and where we need to know this is not our home. So when we lose our loved ones, we just know it is along the way. We are getting there. Thank you so much. May God bless you, and may you take it one day at a time. One day at a time. This has been your Dr. Susan Gitao. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. Dr. Susan Gitao. Like, share, and comment to make it better. Thank you. I would like you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Susan Gitao, where you will access mental health tips every week, every month, every year. Thank you.